welcome everyone and welcome back to the Hypershade this time. In the texturing class from Maya, one of the most important tools you can deal with is the Hypershade. The Hypershade will let you create your textures basically. Okay, so the Hypershade, most of the time in the rendering you want to be, okay, so you have more information for textures and so forth, okay, when you do texturing. But the Hypershade is always located in the window. Rendering editor, okay, it's called Hypershade, just right here, okay. Let me get it right here, okay. This is a very important place. Right here you have the materials that are used in your scene at that moment, okay. The Lambert that you can see right here, all those are default shaders basically, okay. You are not going to use those because if you use the shader, the Lambert shader right here, then at that point, every object you create in your scene will become that shader. All right. So that's why we have right here shaders called surfaces right here that I use to actually create new shaders, new texture. Okay. Let me create a polygon ball right here. Okay, you guys. By clicking on 6, you can see it. By clicking on 7, you can see your texture if you have one. Okay. It's on your keyboard, of course. Okay. Now let me make that a little smaller, and let's get going a little bit more. Okay. Now you have two windows. This is the texture that you have, all the textures that you have in your scene. All right. And this is the work area, which basically one texture you selected, and you want to see more of its option. You can go right here. Clicking on node basically, okay, input and output node. This is the input node, this is the output node, output connection. This is both of them, and you can see it right here now, okay. We can see that shader as a couple things, all right. That's his input and output node, okay. Now you can basically import shaders if you save some, okay. Export selected network, so you can export them then import them if you create shaders you want to keep for later on for across multiple platform, okay, you guys, multiple games. Okay, now you can delete the shader that's selected. You can delete unused node. That's very useful if you have, at the end, you probably create a lot of nodes, all right, and you might use only 1, 3 or 4 or 5 of those shaders that just not being used. You just can delete them right there. You should delete unused nodes, and every shader not used or node not used will be deleted, which is very cool. Make your scene a lot lighter and a lot easier to deal with. Okay, you didn't duplicate stuff. You can delete by type, shader, texture, utilities, lights, and so forth. You can select by type also. All right, texture, light, and utilities. Okay, you duplicate things. Obviously, you can convert file to texture. All right, and we'll look at that. I'll put some extra on that for you guys. It's pretty useful. It goes, it converts very often procedural texture into non-procedural textures, and we'll talk about that. Now you can convert to PSD layer texture, all right, or PXD, just a file texture. You can create PSD network. So PSD is a Photoshop file, obviously. Okay, you guys. So you can create a Photoshop file network and so forth, you know, and use them. It's pretty cool. Not for video games. If you're video games, you don't want to use that type of things. It's too heavy most of the time, too many layers, which doesn't work in the game engine. If you don't use video game, if it's for cartoon or movies, that works fine because you can go back and forth. You have to remember that PSD is very heavy, a lot heavier than other files. That might make your rendering longer and harder, so you want to be careful with that. Maybe at the end, if you do PSD network, maybe transfer that to a TGA or TIFF file, which is not as heavy, and apply that after that, okay? We won't look at that for now. We don't need that. Okay, you can frame them all in the view, frame selected, you know, can different type of things by name, filtering, and so forth. You can make bookmarks, okay? If you have very complicated and very big, a lot of shaders, basically, a big scene with a lot of shaders, it can become very tricky to figure out what's what. So you can create bookmarks, basically, all right, you guys? And then you can go back to your bookmark editor, all right? And then you can go back to your bookmark right here, and it'll show you that actual file, okay? You can create materials, everything right here pretty much is right there on the side, so we'll look at that real soon, you guys. And the tabs, to move up, to move down, basically rename a tab and so forth. You have the graph, Okay, you can clear it, you can show input, output. Okay, most of those are right here, so we're good to go. Same for that. A couple options for display, what you show and what you don't show, the variations or not, merge or so forth. Okay, now, and those are fine, you guys. And you have right here also lights, camera, shading group, baking sets, a lot of stuff. We mainly won't use that much during this class right there, but we will use right here for sure. Those are the surfaces, the different shaders, okay? And I'll come back to shaders real soon. They're basically the main node you create. So you want to create a new texture, for example. You're going to create a Phong shader right here. See, it appears right here. You can right-click on it now, okay? And you can rename it, okay? We'll call it test shader. All right. Hold on. I'll call it just test. Right here, okay? And if we select it and right click and left click on this in and out thing right here, okay, the test is right here and you can see everything that's connected to it, nothing. If you double click on it, you can see all its options also here. In Maya, you can do your work with texture in two different places in reality. In the hypershade right here, or if you select the shader is selected, you can do it right here in the attribute editor, okay? It's similar. The only thing right here, you got to do your connection manually. Right there, you just click on it. So if I click and I decide to put something in the color, let's say maybe an ocean, all right? 2D texture ocean, all right? And that will turn my texture, all right? Actually, let me take something else so we can, let me delete that one. You can just grab it, delete it. All right, like that. You come back to that, and you can just put, and I'll put something like a ramp. There you go. Okay, and so we have a ramp. You can definitely see our texture. Then you can adjust your texture, and we'll talk about ramp during the semester, during the class. And you can select your object right here and right-click on your shaders and say assign materials, and then you can see your materials on your object, which it's pretty useful. You make sure you click on 7 and 6, I mean, so you can see it, you guys. It works pretty well. Okay, that's your shader right there. Okay, that's the file that feeds to the shader color map. Okay, so we done it right here, which was pretty easy. We could do it another way, you guys, which would be to go to down and see 2D textures right there and say, hey, let me select a ramp. And it creates a ramp right there. The thing is, the ramp is not connected to your actual shader yet, so it doesn't affect it. So to do that, you left click, you middle click, sorry, the last arrow, the right arrow right here, and you're gonna drop it, drag onto the left arrow right here and let it go. And you're gonna select the channels. As you will see in the class, there's multiple type of channels, so we'll talk about it. For that one, that would be color, for example. And then colors, up, it's back and it's been colored, all right? So that's the way it works for the shaders type of things, okay, you guys? So I'll see you next class.